Hello everybody, welcome back. Today we're going to be looking at the UI for quests. You can see that here we have an empty UI here where we're going to have the quests. As before, we can interact here with the merchant and talk with him, and he'll give us a quest. So now we can see that here. The quest called Let's Collect Some Logs. When we select it, it tells us, hey, the objective here is to collect 10 logs. The status is incomplete. It requires 10 logs to complete, and it rewards you with 5 stone. So if we go here to the player inventory, currently we don't have enough logs, but if we do, we can complete the quest. You can see here we have now completed the quest. Here in the console it says quest completed, and if we go here to the UI, we can now see here that the status completed. And if we check out our inventory here, we have a lot less logs, and we have all the stone that was in the rewards. So that's what we're going to be looking at today. So let's see how that's all built. First, let's take a look at the UI itself. This time around we have a bit of a different style here. For one, we have a potentially infinite list of quests, so we need to be able to scroll through it. We cannot just keep adding to it, and we could figure out some pagination, but it feels better to have it as a list that you can just scroll through. Another thing that's different here is that we are now using layout elements instead of trying to lay out everything manually. So you can see here that we have a frame as usual and a header panel as usual, but then we have this quest panel that has a horizontal layout group, and then inside that quest panel we have two elements. We have the list of quests and the details here. The details part is pretty straightforward, as we've seen in other UIs. We just have a few text elements here. One is the name of the quest and the other is the details here, where we populate the details of the quest. What's interesting here is what we have in the scroll list here. We have a scroll rect component here for the list and a mask so that the overflow doesn't show. And then inside of that, we have a quest list that is a vertical layout group with a content size feeder here, so that the container here expands as we add more quests. And then we have a few helpers here. We have the quest separator, which is a simple text element with an image to show the tracked quests. And then we have the quest separator here, which does the same for the regular quests. And then we have a couple of collections. One is the tracked quests and the other is quests collection. And each collection here has a number of quest slots, which are basically buttons here that have an image here and the name of the quest. Here's a text element, and when we click on them, we are going to be populating the details here on the details panel. So it's a bit of a complex UI. It has first a horizontal layout to split the panel in two, and then on top of that it has a scrollable component that has a vertical layout in there that's populated by a few collections. So it has a few nested elements here that we need to take care of. So let's look at the code. First, let's look at the changes that I made to the quest object here. We have a couple of variables here. One is should consume requirements. That tells us if once we complete the quest we want to consume whatever item requirements it has. And then we have an item reward section, which is the items that we want to reward the player with once they complete the quest. In the quest tracker, we also have a few changes here. First, we're checking when we're validating the quest. If the quest is complete, we then check if we should consume the requirements, and if so, we call the consume quest requirements method, and then we also apply the quest rewards. These are defined here. We're currently just adding the rewards to the first inventory that we are tracking. If we were tracking several inventories, it could be problematic. We have a regular inventory and a quest inventory, for example. We would need to figure out which inventory to add the rewards, but we will look at that at a later time. For now, we're just picking an inventory here and then trying to add all the items in the item rewards from the quest. We try to add all those items to the inventory. This could potentially fail, or at least return false, if we don't have enough capacity in the inventory. For now, we're not checking against that, but that's something we could add in the future to see if we cannot complete the quest because we cannot fit all the rewards. But that's an edge case that we're not touching right now. And then we have the consume quest requirements method, where we're just checking for every item requirements. We go through every inventory, and if the inventory has enough of the item requirements, then we take them all out and then skip checking the other inventories. And then we're just making sure that we can keep track of whether all the requirements have been met. So we have a little bit of logic here. We start by saying, hey, the requirement is not met. Then as we go through all the inventories. If we get to a point where we find enough items to meet the requirement, we take them out and then we say that the requirement is met. If at the end of looking through all the inventories we haven't met the requirement, then we return false. But if we have met the requirement for every item requirement in the quest, then we return true. And for now, since we are already checking for the item requirements in the validate quest requirements, we're not really doing anything with the consume quest requirements, but we could catch the return false here of consume quest requirements to do some error handling, but it's unlikely that it would happen. In any case, that's something I will have to do in the future. But that's it for the quest logic. Now we can look into the UI. As you saw, we have a couple of collections that have a number of quest slots, each one holding one of these buttons for every quest. So we have a couple of serialized fields here. One is the text element for the quest name and the other is the button itself. And then we're keeping an internal reference to the quest object, and we have a reference to the overall quest UI. We get the reference to the quest UI in the start method, and then we're also adding a listener here to the button itself. So instead of adding it through the editor as usual, we add it as a non-persistent listener here with the add listener. We have a method here called setupQuests so that we can ingest the quest object and keep the reference there, as well as updating the text element with the quest name. And then we have the update quest UI method here, where whenever we click on the button, we want to update the details on the right hand panel of the quest UI. So we are calling the display selected quest method on the quest UI itself. So a pretty simple element. The real challenge here is in the quest UI. We have quite a few elements here. First, we're keeping a reference to the quest tracker. It's coming from the player. Then we have a couple of references to the quest name and quest description in the right hand panel of the UI. We have a reference to the quest list and the tracked quests list. These are both the collections that are going to have all the quest slots. Then we have a reference to the quest slot prefab itself, because we're going to be instantiating this at runtime. And then we have a couple of references to the quest separator and track quest separator, so we can turn them on and off as needed. We also have a couple of lists here to keep track of the quest slots. We have a boolean here that we're using for initialization, and then we have a rect transform here that we're going to be using to update the UI. So in the start method, we are saying that yes, we are initialized, and then we are getting a reference to the quest list parent transform. This is going to be this element, the quest lists, and we're going to use this reference to update the layout, because we're adding elements to this layout, so we need to refresh it. But we'll see that in a second. Then whenever we're enabling the UI, whenever we're displaying it, we are checking whether we have initialized yet. If not, we just return to avoid any null reference issues. And then we are setting up the quests elements here on the quest buttons on the left hand side. We're setting that in a coroutine. And we're doing this because on first enabling, the children elements may not be enabled yet, and that can cause some issues when the UI is being updated. It simply doesn't handle the UI layout very well if we try to do that on the same frame. So we're using a coroutine here to basically just wait one frame so that we know that all the elements have been enabled, and then we are actually updating the UI. So what we're doing here is that we're getting the list of quests from the quest tracker, and we're getting the list of tracked quests from the quest tracker. Then if we have any quests, we turn on the quest separator. If we have any tracked quests, we turn on the tracked quest separator. Then when we are setting up the quest, we get a new list of quest slots that we're populating with all the current existing quest slots in the quest list, including those that are inactive. This is very important. Some of them may not be active, so we want to make sure they are included here. And we're doing the same for the tracked quest slots. Generating a new list every time generates some garbage here, so we may want in the future not to be rebuilding the whole list every time we turn on the UI. But for now, we're going on with creating a little bit of garbage every time. Once we have a list of the current quest slots, we go and set up those lists. And then at the end, we want to call this layout rebuilder, force rebuild layout immediately, so that we can rebuild and rearrange the layout properly right there. Inside this setup quest list method, we are first figuring out if we are missing any quest slots. So let's say that we have already instantiated a couple of quest slots, but we have 10 quests in our quest list. So we are missing 8 quest slots that we need to instantiate. So the missing variable here is going to have 8 in this case. So we're going to be instantiating 8 of the quest slots that we have here in the prefab, and then we're adding them to the list that we have here. So at this point, we should have enough quest slots for however many quests we have in our list. So we go through all the quest slots here, and then if by this point we've run out of quests, for example, if we have the opposite case where we have 8 available quest slots but only 2 quests defined, so by the time we've run out of quests, we set the rest of the quest slots to active false, not to show them, and then for the ones that are going to be used, we set up the quest with the quest object. This setups the name and adds the listener that we needed, and then we set them to active true so they actually show. Then we have the display selected quest method. This is what's going to be called when we click on the quest buttons on the left hand side on any quest on the list. We click on that and that should display the details. So we set up the quest name text element to be the name of the quest, and we set the quest description text element to be the quest description. And this one we're setting up separately. We're just using this format quest description method where we're setting all the different elements. We set up the objective and then add the objective from the quest object. We set up the status and define whether it's complete or incomplete based on the is complete boolean here in the quest object. We list the items required, and we're using here a link method that's called aggregate to basically take the description that we have, and then for every item requirement we add the item name times the item quantity. So that's what you saw where you said like items required is log times 10. This is the method that creates that for every item requirement. And then for the rewards, we do exactly the same thing. We set up the rewards label here, and then for every item reward that we have, we add them here. Say item reward name times item reward quantity. And then we return that. And that's it for the UI. The biggest challenge with this UI is just getting all the layout elements to work well together. It's important to know, for example, that having the scroll element here, it needs a content element here in the scroll rect, and that cannot be itself. So it needs to be here. And then there's a few things to consider here when we have a vertical layout group. If we don't have the content size feeder, it's just not going to have the right size as a layout element. And even if it all shows technically, it's not going to work properly with the scroll rect here because it's not going to have the right size. So it's not going to know how to actually scroll it properly. Other than that, the biggest issues is just figuring out properly how to do the different anchors and sizings and the right combination here of the layout groups, making sure, for example, that the layout is not controlling the children's size, but actually the children themselves are setting up their size. For example, here the collection is setting up the size of the elements here, but the quest slot sets its own size. Here overriding what's happening. And yes, that's it in a nutshell. It's just a lot of UI work here and making sure that the layouts work well together. But now that you know how it's working, let's just jump into VR again to see it. Alright, so here we are in VR. Let's just quickly interact with the merchant so we can get the quest, go through the dialogue. Now I have the quest here. You can see that here that we have one quest which is incomplete. As it's there, the objective is collect 10 logs, requires 10 logs, and the rewards 5 stone. The way that we have it set up, we can actually interact with the merchant again a bunch of times. Just going through the dialogue really quickly, but it's basically just saying the same thing. And then when we open the quest, we have now 4 quests here. They're all the same, and we can scroll here. Now it's not doing much because we can't fit them all, but if we get some more, you can see the scroll in action. So actually, let's just try that. Let's get a bunch more quests. Cool. So I should have more quests now. And here we go. It's all the same quest, but we have this long list of quests that we can scroll through. And then when we click on them, you don't see any changes, but it's actually updating the panels on the right here. And if we go to the inventory here, we can actually set this to 19, so we have 19 logs. Then when the quest validates, we actually get this. So now if we go into the quests, we can actually trigger here, and we know that the first quest here actually completed, and we got our rewards. And yeah, it actually completed quite a bunch of them. But yeah, that's a bug that we'll need to fix because it should only complete one of them in a cycle. But we'll look into into how the race condition there with the inventory is working later on. But for now, we got the UI working. It's updating to the right size and it's collecting all our different quests. So that's working. Cool. That's going to be it for this video. I hope that you find it useful. For me, it was definitely a challenge to get the UI working because it has a lot of tricks to work properly with these automatic layout features. But I hope that you learned something from this. And yeah, I will come back with some more changes to the quest UI here to do the tracked quests and update some of these bugs. And I'll see you in the next video for that. Bye for now.